If you are working in a banking environment or financial service, you need from the central bank, which is a very long process, which requires a lot of investment. So the barriers to entry: can I hire and fire somebody if I'm not happy? What are my responsibilities if I hire even a secretary to set up an office? What are my legal responsibilities? You managed to get a quite good view on your initial business case and your initial investment.
I think that's one of the things that they probably can make it easier for the entrepreneurs. Everyone, my name is Mary Pierce, and today our special guest is Camelia Olteanu. She is the Executive Vice President from different organizations and corporations globally, and we're going to talk about financial advices globally. Thank you so much for being here today.
Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here in your company and very happy to share my experience with your auditors.
Thank you so much. Would you mind sharing with us and with the audience about your experience in opening different organizations and corporations and different markets, and which markets you have experience in opening these different organizations?
First of all, I think that there is a big difference between opening small businesses, opening, of course, multinational and subsidiaries and branches of big companies. And there is a difference in when you want to start finding seed money and you are a startup. So I would make three categories, because this is mainly the drive when you go abroad and you either want to expand, you either want to grow, or you are looking for more customer reach. I would say that in regards to the small and medium-sized enterprise, and I guess this is the interest of all your auditors, it's very important that you understand what are the cost elements. Sometimes when you go to a new geography or a new market, you do not realize what are the initial business case drivers. The initial business case drivers at the beginning, of course, are the setup fees, the service catalog, and mainly the cost of human resources. And they are usually underestimated because, of course, you are going into a new market. You do not necessarily know what legal firm you should engage with. So first you have to get, of course, the right legal firm to set up the structure. You don't know which are the tax advisors. You do not know, for example, property management companies that will help you to find the office. And of course, last but not least, is what are the agencies where you can recruit and when you can get your first people on board. That's very important. Otherwise, a business without people, it's not getting kicked off. Very important also for all the people that are looking to expand their business, might be in China, in Latin America, in United States, or in Africa. You need to understand very well the legal framework, like what are the various responsibilities and what are the liabilities that you have when opening a company. The first question that you need to ask is, what is the ownership structure? And differs from country to country. Sometimes foreigners need to get a partner. Sometimes they cannot have majority of the shares. And this is one of the most important thing to ask a legal firm, because this is how you understand what is your stake in that business and how much you earn and how much of a decision maker you are. Because at the end of the day, the ownership of the company dictates how it will be the rule of the game. I would say in Middle East, it's quite usual to have a local partner which has 50%. And usually they are silent partners that will not necessarily help with capital, but they will, of course, help you with contacts. So you really need to look very careful of how you choose. If you go to do business in China, again, you'll need a local partner, which will have also majority. And you'll need to be with a company that has trading experience, due, of course, to the language, to the barriers of doing business in a country where very few people are not actually in the command of English, and the best way is to pass through trading companies. If you'd go to Brazil and you try to open a company, there the shareholder structure is completely different, because there a foreigner can even own up to 80%. But then that foreigner should also apply for a residence prior to opening a company, and he can apply for a passport, which is a residence passport. These are again barriers to entry, because it makes it more complicated and it makes it more time consuming. Of course, when we look to all these legal aspects of setting up a company, at the end of the day, it impacts the business case and the return on investment, because more I'm waiting for the legal setups to be done, and it can be between 3 to 6 months, I'm losing money. Depending on the type of business, let's say I'm going to open a normal trading company, I'm going to open a financial advisor, I'm going to open an insurance company, you need to get approvals from not only from the ministries, but for example, if you are working in a banking environment or financial service, you need from the central bank. Which is a very long process, which requires a lot of investment. So the barriers to entries at the beginning, they are quite high, because you need to maintain a team of people working maybe for 1 or 2 years on documentation and on a process that you might get a license or you might not get a license to operate in the country. Same happens with trading. Same happens with commodities in chemical industry. Same happens with goods that you take cross-border, and they have to have authorization from the Ministry of Health, or they need to have ISO standards. So there is a very long and very complex process, depending on the type of activity that you want to do. So it's not only the legal setup that the shareholders, but it's also the authority that you need to approach in order to get the correct licenses. License in itself, especially in Asia, even if you do a trading company, you need basically to get a license from the Ministry of Commerce. It's a lengthy process. So before deciding on the geography, you have to make a very thorough market analysis from the barriers of entries, regulations, and the legal ownership structure. Of course, it's worth doing this if you have a very good product which fits the market needs and has a correct match. Otherwise, you might burn out a lot of cash in the process. You might even spend 1 to 2 years, depending on geography. Like there are studies, international studies, that shows that in average to open a company in a completely different geography than where you operate, it takes between 6 to 1.5 years.
Mine took 1 year.
You see, so it's quite long. This is the everything that is related to the legal setup, and this is how you have to start. This is your first step when you enter a new country, when you enter a new geography. This is the first thing that you need to find out. The second will be of course, the access to the local workforce. How fast you can hire, how trained the resources are, what are their language skills, what is the work law, the labor law contracts. Can I hire and fire somebody if I'm not happy? What are my responsibility if I hire even a secretary to set up an office? What are my legal responsibilities? What are the packages that I need to offer? Because in each country and in each jurisdiction, for example, in China, if I hire somebody, it's basically very difficult to fire, and I need to give a lot of benefits in terms of pension, in terms of social packages, and I need to be already connected to have payments for the salary. So in each geography, even your employee number one, the setup of the employee number one and setting him on the system, it might take between 3 to 6 months. So be very careful. The next thing that you need to look is the labor law. The third, because in all jurisdiction, majority, be it Europe, be it in the United States, and of course Asia, you need to have a physical presence. You need to have office spaces. When you sum up all these 3 elements, which is the legal setup, the labor law, and the property, you manage to get a quite good view on your initial business case and your initial investment. always be very careful, because you cannot expand the business thinking that you are a one-man show or one-woman show.
That is so
An
true.
entrepreneur, if he doesn't have a team, and when I'm talking about the first team, who is the person number one that you need to hire when you go in the new geography? Of course, I would say if you are a middle and small enterprise, it should be your salesperson and your HR. And if you are a multinational, yes, you should hire a CEO, a CFO.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not going to be applicable for a smaller organization. It's very important to have penetration to the market. So the first person that you should be hiring is the one that gives you access to the market, gives you access to the customers. You should never start in hiring administrative staff.
Mm-hmm.
This, of course, unless it's a shared service, it's a center where you are doing efficiencies and you are outsourcing from other location. But if you are purely looking for expansion and for growth, that's the employee number one. So having said all this, I think there are very interesting tips that some of all of us know them somehow, but they are not clearly stated, and there is not a clear roadmap that one can take and say, that's what I'm going to do when I go in a new geography.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I think that, when you're looking or thinking you want to expand to global markets, you get so excited for that expansion. But in reality, there's so many things that we need to take a look at before we even, take that step. I personally didn't know all of that when I opened my company here. So I think I learned as I went, and I did make those mistakes. But I think I learned from it, and now that's the main reason why I wanted to interview the experts, because it's important for, people and entrepreneurs wanting to expand to know that it's not as easy as we might think.
Correct. And we tend always to think that the easiest step, because we are all very, of course, high on expectations, and we are very excited to go to new markets, and we think, okay, let's set up the company, without understanding the process and the pain and the responsibilities.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not even talking about some of the juridical responsibility, because in some geographies, if you go to Latin America, to Caribbean, or some African countries, you can't even leave the country if you have a company that didn't, for example, declare one of the latest invoices. Or you have accounting principles that in some countries they are very strict. So you need to be very aware of where you put your foot in, and what are your legal responsibilities, because at the end of the day, that's why it's also called a juridical persona, and is not called anymore a physical persona. So you enter with a set of rules and engagements, and of course responsibility for your side. And a lot of entrepreneurs, especially the newcomers into the entrepreneurial world, they oversee this kind of things.
100%.
Yeah. And they usually go with the right foot, and then they realize how long is the process, how costly it is, and then they are already on the boat, and the boat is moving.
They lose so much money. I have heard so many stories where they wanted to expand, and they didn't know that the process is this long, and then you have to, sometimes the different ministries or government institutions, depending on what their business is requiring so many other setup fees, and you're not aware of those things. And like you said, the process is so long, and by that time you kind of run out of capital, to open up, and it's just such a failure. So thank you for that input. I wanted to ask you, in the financial markets, what are some of the, advice that you can give us, as far as when you are on the trading, companies, or companies that want to do global businesses, and let's see, there's a company in America and they want to do business, whether it's in the Middle East or China or Europe. What are some of the advice or input that you can give us on, being able to get the payments from different countries? Because in between countries, it's not like if you're in America, you just go to the bank and your money gets transferred in that country. But when you're doing international transactions, any advice that you can give us in that space?
It all starts from which is your partner that you choose to have a banking account. And people might think that it's not an important decision. And usually when you open a company, of course, you are obliged to open a corporate account. And this corporate account in the country of the resident dictates how the payment will gonna work in the future, because all your invoices will be sent from this bank account. All your invoices will be basically sent all over the world, and people will have to pay to that bank account. And you have to be very careful, because a lot of countries have restriction. Today the economy is not as open as we think they are, because there are a lot of countries that are sanctioned, a lot of payments, of course, barriers, and you need to look where is the best place for you to set up your bank account. Although it might sound a cliche, but choose the right banking partner, because all these solutions, and again, I'm talking here about somebody who has more experience and maybe has more, is not only a small size medium enterprise, is somebody quite medium. You can use the corporate banking services. And when I'm talking here about corporate services, especially in the trading world, it's the trade finance agreement. So you should enter from the beginning, explaining to your banker, to your relationship manager, what is the type of business? Where are my main customers? Let's say I'm a supplier from Brazil and I'm selling to India. I need to make sure what are the contracts, what are the documentation, and I need to share this very early from my business case with the bank. So immediately after finding the office space, immediately after hiring the person number one, you need to have a very strong relationship with your banker, because your banker will gonna tell you, this is the best setup that you can have. These are the set of documents for businesses between Brazil and India. And depending on the relationship with the countries, like for example, I'm in Brazil and I want to do in India, there are specific banks that you should target, that they have better relationship, or they have custodian banks. So everything happens through a professional banker. You can't use, unfortunately, today, the world of digital payments, the world of any payment gateway, any other bank like Revolut or any other bank that is digital bank, do not offer any services for SMEs and corporate. And this is a kind of a gap in the market. A lot of people get lost in translation. They do not know how to deal with it. But to me, my best advice is go to a banker, ask advice from their corporate team, especially if you are in trading. There is a product called trade finance. See what are the costs to it, because you'll be having invoices, you'll have contracts that will need to fly, and let them take over this responsibility. When you go in a new market, dealing with commercial agreements, papers and transaction and money transfer shouldn't be the first worry on your head, because you should be focusing on selling. You cannot focus on the setup of payments. Payments regionally or globally are quite complicated, and let the specialists handle it. And I'm not talking from the perspective that the banks are the ones who should decide on what you should be doing, but they are the experts in guiding you through the right channels. Of course, if you are telling me that I'm a small business and just have an internet site, and I don't know, I want to sell my tea from Indonesia to Europe, again, I need to look where my customers are and what are the type of payments that they are using, and I need to be connected. But still, your bank in Indonesia, where I'm producing my teas or where I have my head office, I still have to have a very good relationship. It all goes, at the end of the day, how do I funnel my money back? It's a very big challenge for all entrepreneurs. And today, in today's complicated world, you'll find a lot of service providers that are using these payment gateways, that they are giving you a one-shop solution for the payments. In all honesty, I think it's easy, because it will take a lot of your burden and headache from finding the right setup. But it is a challenge, yes, definitely.
That's really, really, for one of the first things they should do is pretty much interview their banker. Right?
Yeah, go and interview your banker. Tell him exactly what you want to do. Tell him where you want to sell your products. Tell him where you show them the contract. Show them, look, I'm waiting for this deal. I'm selling a house and I'm waiting. Ask the banker and let him find the solution for you.
That's really,
don't
really
try to sell half of the story, or not to say everything, because that's where you'll encounter yourself in difficulties and half-cooked solution. Show the contract that this is, are you or bank okay to do transaction from their country? And if they say no, we do not have good relationship, we do not have a good custodian bank, or go to another bank. But be very transparent and always talk with the relationship manager. Yes, they will gonna charge you, they will take a commission on top of it. It's obvious.
They're doing
but at
their
least
job.
They are doing the job, and tell the true story, because sometimes the bankers also do not tell you the solution because they feel like you didn't tell them the whole story. And there is this misconcept of mistrust between banker and customers, because unless you are a local person, let's say I'm a Brazilian and I have a bank account in Brazil with my corporate since 20 years, and I trust and I know your business. If you are a foreigner coming to Brazil and you go new to a bank, it's obvious they will have a kind of a retention, and they will try to say, oh, I don't know if I want to do business, I don't know how the residence applies to that person, like I don't know if he's an American citizen or an Italian citizen, how this will affect my bank and the transaction that the person will do, because you put yourself in international waters. You put yourself into international litigation, because you might always say, okay, I'm an Italian citizen and I have been, let's say, misled by a banker in Brazil, and you can go to European Union court. So there are a lot of problems, because everybody tries to cover his own responsibility. And when you are in a three-party agreement, every piece of the party will want always to defend his own corner.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's normal. It's part of being an entrepreneur. It's part of having a new company. Banker, lawyers, tax advisors, and HR agencies should be on your bread and breakfast.
That's amazing. Well, that's really, really good information. I think we had covered a lot, on the international market. It sounds complex, but I feel like if they right off the back hire their right team and get the right people that they know what they're doing, especially in that market that they want to enter, I think that's one of the things that they probably can make it easier for the entrepreneurs.
Hopefully.
Well, thank you so much for your valuable information. I'm pretty sure that all of you guys took a lot of notes on this one. This was an interview full of really, really, really good input and information. So really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And thanks again.
It was a pleasure to be with you and with your auditors, and I'm sure that they will be very interested to hear these stories. And I'm wishing you all the best in your new endeavors and in achieving much more success for the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.